Captain's Log, Stardate 2023.298. Starfleet has tasked me with a very important and top secret mission to create a new uniform that is not only functional, but highly fashionable. Can I do it? Let's find out. Look what I did today. In honor of the Star Trek dress, we are now in command. Nothing says that better than appropriately painted nails. Okay, are you ready to make our Star Trek dress? I am. Where to begin? Okay, I've done some prep work since we talked last time. So I cut out my paper pattern, had that printed, chose my size, we'll talk about that in a second, and cut it out. I also pre-washed my fabric. So both of these have been washed and dried. I do just use regular warm and cold mix and then detergent, whatever. So good to go, everything is prepped. Now, let's jump into our pattern prep right away. First, what you're gonna get when you're going through any kind of instructions, okay, is they're gonna tell you what pieces you need. Remember, we're doing version A. So we've got all of our version A pieces. However, there are other pieces, like so. I go ahead and cut them all out even if I'm not making that version because I don't wanna limit myself. Maybe I want to make B, C, or D on another day and I don't wanna reprint, fine. So I've cut them out and I've put them on this fancy little pattern hook. Let me show you this. I love this. This is a completely unnecessary part of my sewing practice that I love and adore. This is a pattern hook. It is exactly what it looks like, which is a hanger, but only for patterns. Now, how do I get this fancy, awesome little uniform hole into all of these pieces? Enter this little beauty. This is a pattern punch. Like I said, not crucial, not essential, makes my life so good and wonderful and happy. So literally all I do, let's take a piece I haven't done yet. Pick a part of the pattern that isn't weaker, thinner, or covering up some important notes, okay? And slide that section, unimportant section right under there and chomp it. It's literally just a hole punch. One big fat hole punch that only punches in one size. And it's heavy. Usually when you buy these, they're like cast iron. This one is. I've had this one for a long time and I love it. I love them. I love storing my patterns this way and never folding them again. I love it. I love it. I can't get over it. Okay. Pattern punch. Done. Little tiny confetti bits. Done. Pieces that apply only to B, C, and D and don't double. There are plenty of pieces that will double and they'll say version A, B, and C all on the pattern notes. Just read them, figure out which ones you need. We don't need these little babies. So I'm just gonna set them over there. Now, let's talk about measurements. Measurements are really important because the pattern is going to give you two. One is its standard sizing of, what is it? Bust, waist, hip. Usually it's just gonna give you bust, waist, hip. Then they're gonna give you finished garment. What's really important is looking at the finished garment measurements, taking into account, is it stretch or non-stretch? And then literally you could hold on the tape measure up. Say the waist is going to end up being, no, let's do hip. Hip is an easier one. The hip on this dress is gonna end up being 50, okay? 50 is gonna be that wide. That's not my hip measurement, but it doesn't matter. This is a flared dress. So don't use those measurements as like a total end all be all. It's important to try to line up your own personal measurements, usually the top chart, with the finished garment measurements. All of that's important, but look at those finished measurements and just make a decision. What do you think is gonna look good on you? Use the tape, hold it up, and see what it looks like. This brings us to our next most important point. Ease versus negative ease. What could I possibly mean by that? So when we're working with stretch garments, they're going to have the opposite of ease, negative, which means some of the finished garment measurements will be less than your measurements. Why is that? Stretch. When we're working with stretchy garments, we don't need to add more so that we have enough for our seam allowances, like we would with a woven garment. We're actually going to make it smaller. You know what I'm talking about. When you do your laundry and you pull your t-shirts out and all of your t-shirts are smaller than your actual body, you know why. That's how stretch works. And this design is going to incorporate that. So that is what negative ease is. So when you look at those finished garment measurements, don't get nervous. If they don't match or are less than you, keep in mind that the amount of stretch in your garment is going to make that fit correctly. Okay, now we're ready to actually look at my pattern and the one that I cut out. So for me, I am kind of a classic petite, meaning I'm about an inch short on everything. Torso, arms, legs, you name it. I'm just roughly too short all over. And some pieces that matters for, some it doesn't. This little guy is gonna go up here. Probably doesn't matter, that's fine. I've got some binding pieces, also doesn't matter, that's great. Little neck piece, still doesn't matter. Bodice pieces. This is where we get into the good stuff. Front and back. You can see here, I've already done this little thing, accordion it. On many pattern pieces, they're gonna give you a shorten here or lengthen here line. And it's not normally at the bottom. It's normally halfway down. Let me show you on the sleeve as well. Again, not at the bottom. Don't just cut it off there because you want it to be shorter. Do it where they say to do it, okay? They're trying to do that because they're trying to keep the overall proportions and style of the garment correct while giving you the opportunity to customize that pattern. So for me, on that short and lengthen line, wherever it falls on the pattern, I'm taking a full inch. You can see that I've marked out half and half. Those are my green lines right there. I did that just so that I could make a clean, crisp fold. And I'm actually gonna use some clear tape and just tape that straight in place because this is me. Even if I make it again, I could always slice it. I could always just come back and release that tape if I'm wrong and I wanna make another one and I wanna lengthen that torso. But I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna want that. So I'm gonna do that here, here, and here. All of the places where it gives me the option to shorten, lengthen on that line. Last piece, our skirt. Now, as you know, this is nice, this is cute, this is fun, but I'm going for more of a 70s look. So we, if you can barely see my little pencil line in there, are gonna chop that baby off. And we are gonna remove that long, high-low style detail. Very cute, very fun, just not the style that I am looking for right now. I am assuming that this style is pretty well circle skirt material. It's not a full circle skirt, but it's got a similar cut. So I'm gonna do this really, really easy for myself and straight up measure right down. I want an 18-inch, that's what I've decided, just looking at myself in the mirror. I'm gonna put my 18-inch up here, mark. Move it over, mark. Move it over, mark. Move it over, mark. Give yourself some room there. Don't forget about your hem because you're making these adjustments yourself. Make sure you don't cut it right to where you want it. You need to leave yourself some hem allowance room. But in general, I think this is going to be good for me, and I am actually going to cut this right off. Which brings me to something that I am just going to get probably burned alive for. I'm gonna do something and then I'm gonna explain it. So let me just get my tools. You've seen me cut things. You've seen me cut lots of things in here. This is my rotary blade. This is a pair of scissors. This is a nicer pair of scissors. We cut anything with anything. What do I mean by that? It's as bad as it sounds. We don't distinguish between paper and fabric scissors. I know what you're gonna say, but we just don't do it. And the reason is this: you need sharp scissors all the time, okay? So instead of worrying about whether or not your husband took your scissors to open a package in the kitchen, why don't instead you buy yourself a nice sharpener and keep those things sharp like you're supposed to, okay? That's what we do. So sometimes if we use these scissors, which you know look like fabric scissors, and we just go ahead and we cut the paper with it, nobody cries, okay? Because we sharpen here. We sharpen everything, okay? So just to prove a point, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna make you watch me do it. I know how it feels. We're doing this together, and we're all gonna survive. Also, my pencil line is a little bit rough. I know that you can see that. You know why? Because this is fun. This is recreational. We're doing this for joy, okay? And so that means I only spent as much time measuring that as I felt like. And then I used my good scissors and I cut it. We are recreationally sewing, folks. That's what we're doing here. We are making a Star Trek dress. This is what I actually look like when I'm doing things for fun. Okay, so here we all are. This is trash now, unless you want to keep it, okay? You could just like pattern punch that little baby, keep it for later. Maybe you want to make that style. Fine, whatever, not a big deal. Now, it's actually time to lay it all out and cut.
I'm so hypnotized by the sound of your heartbeat. My soul is overwhelmed. I find it hard to be discreet. I feel your presence in the room. The way it's killing me is a murder. It's unheard of. Let's take the love imprisoned in us and let it go. The lights out. I feel you. You're inside. With this room, you're close by. I can't move. Paralyzed outside.
All right, punch those last few pieces, and then we will be good to go. So as I'm cleaning this up, one of the things that I like to think about is leaving large enough chunks to use later. So you might have seen me in some of those bits cutting off like little scraggly parts. If I feel like I don't have a usable chunk, I will cut off the unnecessary bits to just make it a little more functional. But really, it just makes it easier to fold. And sometimes when I pull out a piece that has a ton of, you okay? Sometimes when I pull out a piece that has a ton of stuff hanging off of it, I immediately feel uninspired. It's a total psychological thing, but I find that it affects me and it matters to me. So I try to keep my bits, my pieces, my fabric scraps as large and usable as possible, or otherwise I make the hard decision right now and say, no, that bit, even though it's big enough to use, maybe I'm never gonna use it again for X reason. I can't figure out what the grain is, or I won't be able to because I've cut off all the selvage, whatever. So I'm gonna fold these up into nice, appealing little chunks so that when I look at them in a few months, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I could definitely use those. Okay, one more important thing. You see this mess? This is really important. It's a part of my process that I like and that I use. Anything that's not usable, I cut off and throw on the floor as I'm cutting. I do that because sometimes we've got little pieces. You notice that some of the binding pieces that I cut look like scraps, okay? So I'm trying to make sure that I don't mix up my actual pieces by nicely folding them on the table and keeping them on my cutting surface, and I chuck all of the things that I'm not going to use. These little processes help me stay focused because I know what I'm doing each time, and I don't have to spend any extra creative capacity going back and going, oh shoot, was that a piece that I needed? Is that something useful? No, if I threw it on the floor, it's done, it's over. That's the life that it's lived. And having little processes like this is gonna make the overall process a lot more fun. So you'll also notice that I didn't use pins. So I don't have pieces of paper pinned to this because cutting is more exact on a rotary with weights, without pins. Sorry, it's just the truth. Okay, the next thing, this is an odd one, but it's a big part of the process for me because so much of my day here in the shop is spent making decisions on what direction we need to go with this or how this needs to be done. What I enjoy when I do get the opportunity to make clothes for myself or to make something for myself is I really relish the reading somebody else's instructions. It really is nice to have somebody else tell me what to do in this moment. And I definitely lean into that. So I'm gonna read through all of the instructions first, and then I'm gonna read through them again as I'm pinning and putting everything together. So that way I know what's coming, I have a general idea of where it's going, and then also, because I am still that control freak, I can make little decisions along the way and go, well, I know they would do that here, but. So if there's something else that I want to do a different way, or if I have a machine that maybe they don't have, like my cover stitch. I know that I'm going to cover stitch the hems on this, but a cover stitch is a huge industrial machine that a lot of people don't have. They barely even, there's a couple of domestic versions, but essentially it's a really hard one to get a hold of, but we've got them. And so I'm going to make a couple of tweaks just because I like that finish and it's accessible here for us. So read through these, don't skip this step. Don't do it. Read it, do it, I'll meet you back here. Felicitations, we're finished. All right, we've read it. Let's start over. So what I did here was what I would consider kind of a physical mind map, you know. As I was reading, I placed these out, how they would go together. This is a lot easier to do with stretch because you're gonna have less darts and common details that come with contouring non-stretch fabrics around a 3D body. In this case, the fabric's doing all of the work, so it's going to be stretching around us anyway. So you can almost see a full flat lay of what I'm going to be doing. I'm gonna put the binding onto the yoke. Then I'm gonna put the binding onto the bottom part of the bodice. Put these bodices together, bodice pieces together, attach them to the back, put on our sleeves, sew our skirt side seams, and then top goes together with the bottom, finish the hems, check the length, congratulate ourselves, and hit the enterprise. Let's go back to the binding. Binding always gives me a little bit of trouble. I could cheat and just cover stitch this up, but also I didn't leave enough hem allowance for that, so we're not gonna do that. So let's just read it. Pin the yoke binding to the yoke where right sides together, aligning the center fronts. You will need to stretch the binding to match the yoke. Use your machine stretch stitch to stitch the binding yoke with a 3/8 inch hem allowance. Great. We're gonna fold this bad boy in half. Actually, you could iron this, depending on how much polyester is in it, probably won't stay. I'm gonna find my center point by just folding it in half. And then I am folding it in half itself again because that's the way that we're gonna place it on. So let's put a pin right there at our center. And then I'm gonna place this on the center. And again, we're doing right sides together. Let me pin this first so that you can see. And look at this. You'll notice in the instructions that she just said, this will not reach all the way to there. So we are gonna make it reach that far, but we're going to stretch as we sew it on. Why are we doing that? This, again, is a little bit of a negative ease concept in which we are gonna use this binding to force this to flip downward. It's gonna be a cool design detail. You're really gonna like that, but it's a little bit hard to pin, so we're just gonna throw a few pins in it. This is also similar to a quartering concept. And actually, I do a much better description of quartering in another video. What is it called? The sweatshirt, when we're putting the cuffs back on the sweatshirt. Look at that one. That's a great one. I love that video and I love that concept. It really helps explain a lot about the mechanics of stretch and how working with stretch materials works. Okay, We just did that to that. Let's jump down here and do the same. Another concept that I love across the board is I'm gonna pin as much as humanly possible before I haul my booty over to the machine. So I'm gonna do as much pinning as I can, and then we're gonna jump over there and do all of the sewing at once. Here's another thing. Totally, you can do this entire thing on a straight stitch machine, absolutely. You can zigzag it, or if you have some other type of domestic stretch stitch that you like, also great, also fine. I am definitely gonna serge the whole thing. I'm gonna love it that way, and I've already got my serger threaded up in black. So I'm gonna do the whole thing serged in black. So that's where we're gonna spend almost this entire dress after I've got this all pinned up. JK, it doesn't need a basting stitch. It's binding. We gotta get the binding right. We can't just haul off and serge the binding. We're gonna throw a little basting stitch in really fast, just to hold this on, and then back to the serger we go. We're gonna do, remember they said 3/8 inch, and it is important to keep whatever hem allowance or seam allowance they said in the pattern. We really wanna follow their instructions with a lot of those measurements. So there are things that we can make other decisions on, like the finishings, but measurements isn't one of them. Yeah, see how it kind of curls up a little bit? That's okay, that's great, that's perfect. God, that looks good. Okay, cool. Cool. We might even press that a little bit. I'm gonna do the same with this guy. Same little deal. And I am not gonna change my thread. I am definitely just keeping black all the way through. That's totally fine, especially with these basting stitches that I may end up taking out if they're at all visible. Can you just barely hear that little bit of, like, it's almost a clapping? That is my needle getting dull, especially when I'm working with a fine stretch like this, like a fine fiber stretch. I could probably use a needle change to a thinner, sharper, newer needle. So we'll do that next. I'm not really completely sticking to the seam allowance right now because I'm going to be serging over top of this. So you'll notice that I am a little bit short of that 3/8 inch. I'm closer to a quarter. Okay. Ooh, wow. Yeah, okay, so if you were just stitching the whole thing, straight stitching the whole thing, which is perfectly fine again, you're gonna have that raw edge on the inside, and then you're gonna have this nice, oh, look at that. You know, it almost makes me wish, no, don't do it now, don't do it now, don't go back on the design. It almost makes me wish that I had bought like a gold for this binding, though, okay, that's not really authentic, it's just that it would have looked really sick. And it could be like sometimes, you know, how they have like their dress uniforms, sometimes have like extra gold piping on them or something. But okay, again, enough creative license, stick to the plan, stick to the plan. This is actually, wow, this is really ironing well. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about something while we're here, ironing knits. So I know what you're thinking. I don't press my t-shirts. I don't iron my knit clothes at home. That's totally fine. That's not what this is about. We aren't ironing to get the wrinkles out. We are ironing to set the work that we're doing, to set it all in place as we're going along, just like we would with a woven, so that everything lines up and still looks good as we're bringing it all together. So don't get hung up on, well, I'm never gonna press that again, or I'm never gonna iron that coming out of the wash. I know that. That's not what this is about. This is really about getting everything aligned and prepped the way that we want it to be. Okay, let's pin. Nah, I'm gonna serge the edge and then we'll pin it together. Let's do that real quick. needs to be run. Okay, one more. And then we are ready. I love deer and doe. I love them so much. They make such great patterns. Great. Got this. Or we got our cutie little front. So cute. And then we've got our little yoke, is what we're calling that. And our shoulder seams are going to match up on the outer edge. Yes. Okay. Cool. That means that our armholes are exactly matching up. This is going to be another basting situation where we're just going to make sure that they're stitched together, but it's definitely going to need a stretch stitch because of where it is in this tighter curve, which is our armhole. All right, good. That's great. And then we'll come over and do this on the other side. You'll notice the keyhole is very small here. We don't actually know how big it's going to be when it's on yet, because when we have a bust to fill this out, we will see how far that keyhole stretches out. Again, this is my first time making this pattern, so this is fun for me too, because the truth is I'm not exactly sure what it will look like. I think it'll look good. I think I'll like it. Might be a little bit tight. And one more pin at the top just to remind me. And I think we can bring our back over with us, because after we do this quick stitch, we're gonna add our back piece to, we're actually gonna sew it right here to that shoulder, and then that is gonna be enclosed. Yeah, great. Okay, let's do that. This is fun. I always love when we start with one of the most prominent structural details first, because it always gets me very excited about finishing the whole thing. It's nice when you kind of come out the gate with sort of the harder parts of it, and then it gets easier as you go. And by the time you get to the skirt, you're like, ah, this was awesome. I should do this every single day. And then you start a business and you do it every single day. Great, and then I'm gonna come up to this corner and turn. And remember, my red doesn't go the whole way, that's fine. And I'm not even gonna backstitch there, because again, just basting. I am gonna baste that edge down. I don't know if that should have made it all the way, but it didn't on mine, so like, it is what it is. Okay, perfect. That's gonna be cute. That is gonna be so cute. See, I'm trying to feed it in as straight as I can. Remember, it's stretch. It'll do whatever you want, so make it do what you want. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. I am not gonna serge that, because the sleeve is gonna go here and the sides are gonna go there. So we will do all of that finishing later. We don't need to worry about that right now. And now I'm putting my back on my correct side of my front, because I want this raw edge to be enclosed when I flip it to the other side. So this is also another really quick stitch, but I am gonna finish this one right now. Finishing is the thing that really kept me from progressing completely when I was teaching myself to sew. I will totally be honest with you on that. Because I'd see other videos or instructions or whatever on how to make a garment, but it literally would leave, I mean, tell me if you felt this way, but so many of the patterns, that they even still sell is like, oh, we'll zigzag the edge and that's your finish. I know, but I wanted more than that. It really is what led me to all of these machines, because I was like, no, but they don't sell clothes like that in the store. I want to make clothes the way that they sell them in the store. And they're not just zigzagging the edge. They're doing something else, and I have to know what it is. That's one of the big things that got me all the way here. Awesome. That looks great. We'll check it real quick. Yeah, that looks awesome. Okay, we're gonna finish. We're gonna serge that real quick, and then we're gonna jump over and go sleeves and neck. Mock, I think. I think that's next. Yeah, yep. Good, good, good. What is your ENTJ in Star Trek? You know, who is the ENTJ? I want to find that out. All right, come back over to our sleeves. I oriented them this way. I laid them out already, but you see this? 2, 1. 1 snip is always the front. 2 snips is always the back. So there we go. Our back is red, our front is the black yoke detail. Now, when you flip this over and you try to start piecing it in, immediately you're gonna be like, oh shoot, that shape doesn't go together. Okay, cool, now what do I do? Exactly what you think. You're gonna take your center point, take your end points. Yes, they are a little hard to pin together, so this is gonna be about maneuvering on the machine. You can sort of try to stretch them into place if you want. You see how I'm doing that here, where I'm holding that and I'm kind of like yanking that down. Again, all of the joys of stretch material, it allows you to force it into where you want it to go. And now keeping that flat and pulling this all over to this side now. I'm gonna match these up again. This red transition from the back into the sleeves is gonna be super dope. Great, and then again, I'm holding these 2 points and I'm kind of pulling this back and trying to get it to sit where I think it will. But it's not gonna be a perfect match because you've got different shaped curves, and that's all thanks to the stretch, that they will be able to just be stretched and kind of folded together like that. All right, that's one sleeve. Sort of looks like this. You're starting to kind of get the view. And then that was feel and view at the same time. So I did say veal. You're starting to get the veal. Actually, I like that. I don't dislike it, you know. This one, we probably are gonna go straight for the serger. No, let's keep it our good thing going here with the basting. The basting is really going very well. So we're gonna do that. I would like to know if watching me pin this together is useful in any way. So if you actually find this helpful, tell me. Because to me, it's just kind of like, I'm going through the motions of something that I'm used to doing, pinning stretch sleeves in, but I'm not exactly sure how confusing this is, so I would love for someone to tell me if this example is helpful at all. I'm gonna move that. Okay. Now notice I only pinned the shoulders. I did not go all the way down. That was on purpose, so wait for it. We're getting there. It's coming together. Okay. Yay. Yay, that's pretty. Okay, cool, 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 cool. I am really liking this burgundy in general in life. Wine. Let's call it wine. This is cool. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. Yeah, love it. Okay, cool. We're gonna finish this seam. We're gonna serge that up, and then we're gonna immediately close this side seam all the way down our back end body together. So I'm gonna serge this, and then I'm gonna immediately serge that, and we're gonna have a whole top all at once. Okay. And the neck hole fits, so that's important. And no closures, no zippers, just a straight up pull on stretch dress. I'm gonna put my underarm seams together. Don't worry about how you're finishing the sleeve yet. We'll get there. That doesn't matter right now at this moment. Okay. Yep, and you could definitely be good and pin a couple of these points together, like the sleeve opening, halfway down the sleeve, and then definitely armhole seams. That one's gonna be important. And one of the reasons that one's important is because I like to press my seam allowances in separate directions, 2 different directions. It just decreases a little bit of that bulk of the seams meeting right here at your armpit. And I'm also trying to make sure that they, the seams from the front and the back and the armhole all kind of line up in a nice, smooth little cross. We're gonna check the arm opening tightness later. We can always make that adjustment, but we need to get it all together first, and then we'll make sure that we like that fit, okay? Too much fun. Okay. Mock neck. This is a cool one. I love the way that this works. So we're gonna sew the short sides together, and then after that is connected, and that'll be another quick serge. Then we'll fold it down so that it's folded in half, then lengthwise. And this is gonna be our little collar where our rank goes, just like that. So we'll try that on, and then we'll attach it here. Ooh, I can tell already that's gonna be great. And while we're over there, I am gonna like kind of double whammy this, and we're gonna sew the side seams of our front and back together. Remember, because it's stretched, there's no closure, so we're gonna make our bottom skirt a complete circle now, or close to it. And sew this, all gonna be serged. And then after that, we'll connect this to the collar and this to the top, and literally the entire dress will be assembled. So we just made our little mock neck, like turtleneck. I'm going to take my serged edge or my finished edge, whichever, and fold it on top of itself so that we are folding this band lengthwise and making it into this adorable little collar. You see, that's what my little pips are gonna go on. Okay, so now I wanna make this, I want to do this from the inside. So I'm going to flip my shirt inside out. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Don't worry about the sleeves, just leave them dangling, because I want to attach this. Let's get all of my makeup off of it. I want to attach this. Yeah, in here. And I think I'll put my center back seam at the center back so that it's easier to get dressed, so that I know where it goes. So I'm gonna put that inside. This is gonna be another quartering situation where I've got my cuff, let's call it, inside. I just pinned the center back, so I'm gonna go directly across and put my next pin. That's gonna be my center front. And then I'm gonna go side to side also. And we're just gently stretching This is almost a perfect fit because there's going to be no like bunching or gathering, but we just want to make sure that we've got it all evenly spaced and where it should be. And we'll put 2 more pins. That's going to be at each of the shoulder seams. Last one. And don't forget, you want to make sure you've got both sides of the folded over collar and your shirt, your top. So you've got 3 layers each at each pinpoint. Cool, great, okay, that's gonna be great. Now, while our shirt is inside out, we can also do this, let's shove these sleeves inside. We can also do this with our skirt. So let's think about one more time. Our shirt is inside out. So our skirt needs to be right side out. Good. And then we're gonna put, we're gonna put the skirt inside as well and just match up these side seams. You'll know that you got it right because both of the serged edges from each side seam, top and bottom, should be facing away from each other. So you are actually pinning the right sides together at the opening of the bottom opening of the top and the top opening of the bottom, the skirt. So I'm gonna do side seams first, make sure it's not weird or twisted or anything like that, and then I'm gonna kind of like shake it open a little bit. There you go, you can kind of imagine. There we go. And again, just 4 pins for me, that's all I really care about. And then again, we are so ready to serge our collar up here and our waist down here. Exactly the same concepts. One is just bigger than the other. And on a circular stitch on the serger, remember, we're gonna run over that initial stitch and then we're gonna run off. And then we just run off just like that, you see? Fancy little trick, love it. And now we're gonna come up here to the top. I'm gonna start at one of the side seams just because I always like to put my tails on a seam. And I'm gonna lift and slide on and then slide back off when we make it all the way around the circle. And don't forget, you've got 3 layers here. So we're gonna try to make it all line up. This one is a little bit of a tighter curve, so I'm taking less like long strides before I readjust. And just making sure that I don't miss any of my pins because that would be catastrophic. And I'm looking underneath to make sure I'm catching all of the layers again. And then, again, we're running over our initial stitches and then running off. Great, great. Looks like we caught it all. I'm just gonna go through, wipe off some more of my makeup. I like how loud this machine is too. This is one of my oldest machines because I bought this used and it was already heavily loved, which honestly for industrials doesn't matter at all. This little beauty is a cover stitch. So look at all these knobs, look at all these spools. This is like as industrial as it comes. These are the machines that they use to hem any kind of stretch, like this Lululemon shirt, anything that's got 2 or 3 lines of stitching and then a bunch of what looks like zigzag on the back, that's what this is. So I'm gonna fold up just a little 3/4 of an inch on my sleeve here and run that just like so. This is a little bit of a tight circle, so it's really hard for you to see what I'm doing, but this is the underside, and this is the upper side. So we're coming back around, we're just about to meet our entry point, and we're aiming to get it right on top. And then we're gonna turn the hand wheel and lift that out and cut all of those threads. This is the only machine that I have that does not have an automatic thread trimmer. And what it's doing is finishing that edge and giving it a stretch hem all at once. God, isn't that beautiful? I love that. Now it looks exactly like a t-shirt or something that has been, produced. So that's all I'm gonna do to finish my sleeves. I'll give a quick press just to get that little bit of bubbling down, and then time to put her on. What are you doing on my bridge? Before I call security. What do you think? Pretty convincing, huh? We got the colors, we got the details, we've got the pips, even the comm badge, you can see. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me in boldly going someplace I have never gone before. If you are interested in the universe of garment construction, like, subscribe, comment, ask me about this video. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another adventure to embark on. One to be down.